Hey everybody, welcome back to my refurbishing work on the Presario CQ42. So if you remember my last video that I did, we were working on refurbishing this guy, and yeah, and it's pretty much done now. Well, as far as all the work I had to do to get things working for drivers and stuff, and updating Windows 7, the multi-day process that is. But anyway, so we have Windows 7 on here, Ultimate Service Pack 1, and we're getting that awesome kind of strobing effect that we had last time I was shooting this video. Sorry guys, but that's the nature of shooting on an iPhone. But anyway, and you're getting a Moyer effect, all kinds of stuff happening. But hey, that's what we do here. So as you can see, it's got, you know, an AMD Athlon 2 P320 dual core operating at 2.1 gigahertz with 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64-bit operating system, and yeah, this thing works pretty well. And if we go in here to the device manager, we know that everything's good because once the device manager actually comes up, oh, you can do it. Yes, you can. We can see there's nothing showing up here that's needing drivers, which is always what I do. When I have a system, I like to have all the drivers installed, and the best drivers if I can, because I find performance does improve quite a bit. So we go into our Windows 7 index. You can see that, of course, the weakest link is the graphics, which is always the case with these kinds of systems of this era. So this is a 2010 system. So let's get that out of the way. And let's look at some standard stuff that we typically do when benchmarking and examining these kinds of laptops. Somebody asked me to run some games on it. Sorry guys, I don't do games. I don't play games much. And you know, any kind of game that you'd play on this thing is probably going to have pretty mediocre performance. So why, right? I mean, if you want these clowny videos that, you know, go, hey, look, I tried to run the latest game on this piece of crap. Well, they're out there. I don't think I need to make another one. But if you like that kind of thing, I'm not judging. Hey, we all watch stuff that's kind of funny. So, hey, go for it. I don't care. You know, that's your thing, and I don't slight you for it. But I actually use these systems. They are quite capable. So, yeah, so let's dig into it. So as we mentioned, it has the AMD processor. For whatever reason, it sort of is experiencing an identity crisis because the name of the processor is a AMD K10 according to the processor name, but when you look in the specifications, they got a different name. So it's an AMD thing, and yeah, it's pretty good. The motherboard is an AMD type motherboard, and it's got 2010 BIOS by Hewlett Packard. They're very basic type BIOS, but you know, they get the job done. It's got DDR3, dual channel, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and the RAM chips are Samsung from 2010, both of them. And so yeah, good matchup of RAM sticks. So that covers that basic info there. So we have a AMD Mobile Radeon HD 4250 graphics, integrated graphics, with dedicated memory of 256 megabytes of RAM. So you think, hey, that's not too bad, right? And, you know, I've definitely got systems that run worse, believe me. But, you know, well, as we'll find out, it's also not awesome. So, quick summary then. Going to our specy, we can see the different aspects of this system. Why I go to this, though, is I can see the temperatures, and the temperatures are good. It also gives us some information about the storage. I have a USB flash drive in there, so ignore that, but it's basically 150 gigabytes of usable space on a spinning hard drive. We'll get into a little bit more about that. And yeah, there you go. Quick rundown. I don't spend too much time on that, but I like Specky. It's a good program for showing you all the different things you might want to know about your system. So I tend to use it quite a bit. Okay, swinging over to the old Crystal Disk info. We got some very good information there, which is telling us, A, it's good. The hard drive's good. Let's see how old this hard drive is. How much use has it had? 158 days. Not bad at all. I would say that's a dang good physical hard drive, like a mechanical hard drive. So I could put an SSD in here, but then why? I have all these hard drives lying around from salvage systems, so just use them. Why not? All right, so we got the old Nova bench happening here. That's our next step in the process. Let me just close out this. Let me just close out. Sorry, I'm being distracted here. Yeah, so let's just center this up here for you guys, and we're gonna run this thing and see what we get. Yeah, good enough. Here we go. So this is a standard test I kind of run on all my systems. It just kind of covers all the general bases of a system as to what it would use to run programs, run games, that sort of thing. So it does a standard test, all your RAM, your hard drive, transfer speeds, things like that, CPU obviously, and yeah, and eventually when it gets to the test on the graphics, that's really the tell. That is the tell, and that would tell you pretty much what you get out of an actual gaming experience with it. So here we go. So yeah, 30, 40 frames, 44. So I mean, it does some graphics, and it, you know, I've got worse, believe me, especially for a system like this sort of thing, consumer grade laptop from 2010. So what is the result here? Results are, all right, so 305. So what does 305 mean? Well, I hate to tell you this, but this is very much a middle of the road type laptop. Obviously it's not a gaming system at all. And you know, as far as the RAM goes, that's a decent score. CPU, it's a little on the low side. Graphics though, at 39 frames per second, scoring a 10, that really isn't going to cut it for a lot of gaming experience. But for anything like even some basic, like playing videos and stuff like that, not a problem. It's going to do just fine. Even some light, you know, video editing kind of stuff probably would be fine, depending on obviously the resolution. But otherwise, yeah, it's not terrible, right? So that's what I always look at when I am looking at a system. So just to reiterate what we kind of went over, I typically spec all my systems and I put it into a little database that I use to keep track of things. And here we go. This is what we got. So I'm not gonna go through it all. You can pause if you want to look at any of this information in depth. But these are the kind of things specs that I kind of keep for all my systems so that I can compare them, get a read on what I want to use sometimes if I have a certain project in mind. The display is 1366 by 768, not bad at all for my uses. I find that's a pretty ideal size for a laptop. I try to tend to go with Super VGA, like 1024 by 768 as a minimum. I have, I think, one system that's like a netbook that's worse, but otherwise, if they do that, I can work with them for most things I do. So yeah, there you go. Benchmark scores, they're probably a little bit different this time than sometimes they rate just slightly different depending on what you have plugged into the system. I think I got maybe a couple programs open or something to alter the specs, but those are pretty close to what I had before. Yeah, so I'm gonna just sum it up with the pros and cons. I would say that the Windows 7 runs fairly well on it, no problem. The keyboard is in good condition, main battery is functional, hard drive is showing no crystal disk info warnings, graphics are okay. I would call it a pro. Those graphics are all right. The CMOS battery works, which is a common problem with a system this old, but the cons are the system is really just a middle of the road system. So my conclusion on the whole thing is that I'm happy with it, right? It's a consumer grade laptop, paid very little money for it. The refurb went pretty easily. Microsoft still supports the updating, Windows updates, that finds a lot of drivers and things after you get the initial stuff set up on it. And yeah, I'm kind of pretty happy with this system. At this point, I can kind of throw it in with my rest of my systems that I use and rotate around. And typically, I use these systems when I go out to McDonald's or to Starbucks or someplace where I want to just sort of sit down and I want to just sort of use the system to do some things. The things that I do that are pretty simple, pretty basic. I always use a USB, so I don't even care about like Wi-Fi connectivity or anything. I just bring my work with me on a USB stick, and I'm good to go. And these things get the job done. So anyway, I hope you're having a good Sunday, and wherever you are, I hope you have a great day.